July 15th, 1998, 7:43 a.m. Sarah Henderson opened her front door to a stranger claiming to be a federal agent. In that moment, she had no idea this would be the last morning she'd ever spend with her husband Michael. The man flashed official-looking credentials and said, "Mrs. Henderson, you and your husband are in immediate danger. You need to come with me right now." Just 12 hours earlier, they'd returned from their dream honeymoon in Hawaii. Sarah, a 26-year-old elementary school teacher, and Michael, a 28-year-old software engineer, seemed to have the perfect life ahead of them. But Michael had accidentally discovered something that powerful people would kill to keep secret. A $40 million financial crime that reached the highest levels of corporate America. What would you have done? Would you have trusted this mysterious agent and left everything behind? Sarah was absolutely glowing, recalled Patricia Martinez, Sarah's mother, about their last conversation. I'd never seen her so happy in her entire life. On the evening of July 14th, 1998, at exactly 9:42 p.m., Sarah called her mother from their suburban Dallas home. For 27 minutes, she bubbled with excitement about their Hawaiian adventure. The shell necklace Michael bought her, their snorkeling mishap where she accidentally grabbed Michael's leg thinking it was a sea turtle, the magical sunset dinners on the beach. Michael was laughing in the background the whole time, Patricia remembered. They both sounded like they didn't have a care in the world. At 10:18 p.m. that same evening, Michael called his best friend David Thompson, who had served as his best man just 10 days earlier. The 15-minute conversation was filled with Michael's plans for their future. He was already talking about their next vacation, maybe Europe for their first anniversary, David later told investigators. I'd never heard Michael sound so happy. He kept joking about how Sarah had collected so many seashells their suitcase was overweight at the airport. Their neighbors on Maple Street, a quiet residential area where everyone knew each other's names, had watched the couple arrive home around 8:15 p.m. Mrs. Dorothy Walsh, their 67-year-old neighbor, was watering her garden when she saw them pull into their driveway. They both waved at me with these huge smiles, she recalled. Sarah was practically bouncing in her seat. They looked like two people who had everything to live for. The couple spent their evening unpacking Hawaiian souvenirs and settling back into their routine. Sarah's shell necklace lay carefully placed on her nightstand. Michael's work clothes were laid out for the next morning. He was eager to return to his job at Data Tech Solutions and share an important discovery he'd made before their honeymoon. At 11:45 p.m., their bedroom light went out. Mr. James Crawford, their insomniac neighbor who often kept watch from his front porch, noted the time. It would be the last normal night of their lives. But what the newlyweds didn't know was that Michael's recent work had put them both in mortal danger. 3 weeks before their honeymoon, Michael Henderson had stumbled onto something that would change everything. As a software engineer specializing in banking security systems, Michael was developing protocols for Southwest Financial Services' online banking platform. The work required him to access the bank's most sensitive security systems. And that's when he noticed something strange. Michael mentioned he'd found some irregularities in the client's security setup, his supervisor Linda Chen later recalled. He said there were unauthorized access points that looked like they could be used to steal customer information. What Michael had actually discovered was far worse than simple security flaws. Hidden within the bank's systems were digital pathways being used to move massive amounts of money, $40 million over 3 years, from legitimate accounts into untraceable offshore destinations. The money was drug money from Mexican cartels, and Southwest Financial's executives were being paid millions to facilitate the laundering operation. Michael's thorough security assessment had documented everything. The unauthorized access points, the money transfer patterns, even the digital fingerprints of the people manipulating the system. His report would have immediately triggered a federal investigation that could have sent the bank's executives to prison for life. Sarah knew something was troubling her husband in the weeks before their wedding. He'd been working late and seemed stressed about a project she had mentioned to her mother. He said he might have to testify about something related to his work, but he didn't know the specifics. Michael had planned to present his findings to bank regulators immediately after returning from their honeymoon. He had no idea that someone was watching his every move. On July 13th, Just one day before the couple returned from Hawaii, sophisticated hackers attempted to remotely access Michael's work computer. FBI cyber specialists would later determine that the intrusion was specifically designed to steal Michael's security assessment files. "This wasn't a random hacking attempt," explained Special Agent David Park. "Someone knew exactly what Michael had discovered and was trying to get their hands on his evidence. The timing was no coincidence. Michael Henderson had become a threat that needed to be eliminated, along with anyone who might have knowledge of what he'd found. What the criminals didn't expect was that Michael had shared some of his concerns with his new wife. Think about this. If you discovered evidence of a massive crime at your workplace, what would you do? Would you report it immediately, or would you want to be absolutely certain first?" Wednesday, July 15, 1998, started like any other summer day in Texas, with temperatures already climbing toward a scorching 98 degrees. At 6:30 a.m., Michael's alarm went off as usual. He was scheduled to return to work at Data Tech Solutions for a team meeting about the Southwest Financial Project. His supervisor, Linda Chen, was expecting him by 8:30 a.m., but someone else was expecting him too. At exactly 7:30 a.m., Mr. James Crawford noticed an unfamiliar dark blue sedan parked on their street, about 3 houses down from the Henderson home. The car was facing toward their house, and it stayed there for exactly 20 minutes. "I noticed it because it wasn't a car I'd seen before," Crawford later told Detective Amanda Foster. "Something about it seemed deliberate, like whoever was inside was watching the Henderson house." At 7:43 a.m., that car door slammed, the sound Mrs. Walsh heard while preparing breakfast in her kitchen. A man approached the Henderson front door carrying what appeared to be federal credentials and a carefully rehearsed story designed to exploit Michael's recent discoveries. "I knocked on their door and told them I was Agent Robert Chen from a joint FBI Treasury task force investigating financial crimes," the man would later confess. "I explained that Michael's work had put them in danger from people involved in organized crime." His name was actually Victor Reyes, a professional criminal who specialized in making people disappear. He had been hired by the Southwest financial executives to handle the Michael Henderson problem permanently. But Reyes had done his homework. He knew specific details about Michael's security assessment, including technical terminology that only someone with insider knowledge could possess. He knew about the unauthorized access points, the money transfer patterns, even the timing of Michael's planned presentation. This detailed knowledge, combined with his professional demeanor and authentic-looking federal identification, made his story terrifyingly believable. "I told them they had less than an hour to decide," Reyes later confessed. "Either come with me voluntarily to a safe location where they would be given new identities and relocated, or risk being killed by the people who wanted to silence them." Faced with this impossible choice, trust a stranger claiming to offer federal protection or stay home and risk death, what would you have done? Sarah and Michael Henderson made the decision that seemed like their only chance for survival. They left their wallets, their car keys, their cell phones, everything that could identify them. As instructed by their supposed federal handler, they walked out their front door at approximately 7:50 a.m. and got into the dark blue sedan. They believed they were entering a legitimate witness protection program. In reality, they were walking into a trap that had been months in the making. The K9 units would later trace their scent from inside the house to the front door, then down the walkway to the street, where it stopped abruptly. The dogs had confirmed what investigators feared most. Sarah and Michael Henderson had left voluntarily with someone they trusted. But who was Victor Reyes, and what did he really plan to do with them? By 8:45 a.m., Linda Chen was worried. Michael Henderson had never missed a day of work without calling, and he wasn't answering his phone. When she called Sarah's school, Roosevelt Elementary, she learned that Sarah hadn't shown up for mandatory teacher training either. Both of them missing on the same day was unprecedented. At 11:15 a.m., Linda Chen stood on the Hendersons' front porch, knocking on a door that would never be answered again. The house was locked, the curtains drawn, their cars still in the driveway. Something was very wrong, Chen later told police. Michael was one of the most reliable people I'd ever worked with. He would never just disappear without explanation. Detective Amanda Foster arrived at the scene that afternoon with 15 years of missing persons experience. What she found inside the Henderson home told a chilling story. 2 coffee cups in the sink. They'd had their morning coffee as usual. A half pot of coffee still brewing since 6:45 a.m. Breakfast bowls set out but never used. Michael's work clothes laid out. Sarah's teacher training materials organized on the kitchen table. Most significantly, all their personal belongings were still there. Wallets with cash and credit cards, car keys, cell phones, everything you'd need to start a new life voluntarily, all left behind. In my experience, Detective Foster explained, when adults disappear voluntarily, they take certain items with them. Identification, money, transportation. The Hendersons took none of these things. The K9 search revealed the most disturbing evidence of all. Both dogs tracked Sarah and Michael's scents from inside the house to the front door, then down the walkway to the driveway, where the trail stopped abruptly at the edge of the street. They had left their home on foot and gotten into a vehicle. But whether they did so willingly or under duress would become the central question of the investigation. As Detective Foster canvassed the neighborhood, the pieces of a disturbing puzzle began to emerge. Mrs. Walsh's car door slam at 7:45 a.m. Mr. Crawford's mysterious dark sedan that watched the house for exactly 20 minutes. The timing was too precise to be coincidental, Foster noted in her report. Someone had been planning this operation carefully, but investigators had no idea yet that they were dealing with a professional criminal organization with connections to Mexican drug cartels and millions of dollars at stake. The next break in the case would come from an unexpected source. A gas station attendant 15 miles away who remembered serving a nervous couple on the morning of July 15th. What do you think happened next? Did Sarah and Michael realize they were in danger, or did they still believe they were being protected? Jose Ramirez was working the early morning shift at a Shell station in Mesquite when he noticed something unusual. I remember them because they seemed upset about something, Ramirez told Detective Foster when she arrived to interview him on July 17th. The woman looked like she had been crying, and the man kept looking over his shoulder like he was worried about something. The couple had arrived at the gas station around 8:15 a.m. on July 15th, just 30 minutes after leaving their home. They matched the general description of Sarah and Michael Henderson. A woman with reddish-brown hair wearing a yellow top, and a man of medium build in casual clothes. They bought a cup of coffee and asked for directions to Interstate 20 East, Ramirez continued. I thought it was weird because there are easier ways to get to I-20 from this area. Most significantly, the couple hadn't arrived by car. They walked up from the direction of the bus stop across the street, Ramirez explained. After they got their coffee and directions, they walked back toward the bus stop. Detective Foster immediately checked with Dallas Area Rapid Transit. Bus Route 408 had stops at the Mesquite station at 7:52 a.m. and 8:23 a.m. If the couple Ramirez saw were indeed the Hendersons, they would have had to board the 7:52 a.m. bus to arrive at the gas station by 8:15 a.m. This timeline was crucial. It meant that within just 22 minutes of leaving their home, Sarah and Michael were already traveling east on public transportation, appearing distressed and asking for directions to the interstate. Were they still believing they were in federal protection? Or had they already realized something was wrong? The next sighting came from an even more distant location. Maria Santos, waiting for a bus to Houston, reported seeing a couple matching the Hendersons' description at a Greyhound station in Shreveport, Louisiana, on the afternoon of July 15th. I noticed this couple because they seemed really nervous, Santos explained. The woman kept looking around like she was scared of something, and the man was very protective of her. They were standing near the ticket window, but I didn't see them actually buy tickets. The timeline suggested that Sarah and Michael had traveled over 200 miles from Dallas in less than 8 hours, moving from bus to bus, always staying in motion. But where were they going, and who was controlling their movements? The answer would come from an investigation into Michael's work computer that revealed the true scope of the conspiracy they had stumbled into. As FBI cyber specialists analyzed Michael's work files, the full magnitude of his discovery became clear. Southwest Financial Services wasn't just vulnerable to hackers, It was actively being used as a money laundering operation for Mexican drug cartels. Over 3 years, more than $40 million in illegal proceeds had been cleaned through the bank systems, with the bank's executives receiving substantial payments for their cooperation. Michael Henderson had unwittingly documented a major federal crime, explained FBI agent Marcus Johnson. His security assessment didn't just identify technical vulnerabilities. It traced the money flows and identified the specific accounts being used for money laundering. Michael's report contained everything federal prosecutors would need to bring down the entire operation: account numbers, transaction patterns, digital signatures of the bank executives facilitating the transfers, even evidence of their payments from the cartel. If Michael had presented this information to bank regulators as planned, Agent Johnson continued, it would have immediately triggered a massive federal investigation. The bank executives would have faced decades in federal prison. That's when the executives at Southwest Financial made a desperate decision. They contacted Victor Reyes, a criminal who specialized in making inconvenient people disappear. They wanted the Hendersons gone, but they didn't want blood on their hands, Reyes later confessed. My job was to convince them to disappear voluntarily, with new identities and enough money to start over somewhere else. But as Sarah and Michael were moved from location to location over the following weeks, always believing they were being processed through a legitimate federal witness protection program, the Southwest Financial executives grew increasingly nervous. Michael Henderson knew too much. Even with a new identity, even living in another country, he would always be a potential threat to their operation. On August 4th, 3 weeks after the couple's disappearance, Reyes received new instructions from his employers. The couple could not be allowed to live, even with new identities. They told me the situation had changed, Reyes confessed. The only permanent solution was to eliminate them. This is where the story takes its most tragic turn, and where the few pieces of evidence we have paint a heartbreaking picture of a couple's growing realization that they had been deceived. In a notebook found in one of the safe houses used by Reyes, investigators discovered journal entries written by Sarah Henderson during the first week of August 1998. These entries, written in Sarah's careful teacher's handwriting, provide a window into the couple's final days and their growing understanding that they were not being protected by the federal government. Michael is trying to stay positive, but I can tell he's starting to have doubts about this whole situation, Sarah wrote on August 2nd. The man who says he's helping us won't answer basic questions about where we're going or when we'll be able to contact our families. I'm starting to think we've made a terrible mistake by trusting him. Another entry, dated August 3rd, revealed Sarah's growing desperation. I tried to call my mother from a payphone today, but our handler found out and became very angry. He said any contact with our old lives would put us and our families in danger. But something doesn't feel right about this. If we're really being protected by the government, why can't we talk to anyone in authority? The final entry, written on August 4th, was brief but chilling. Michael found a phone and called his work. No one there has heard anything about us being in witness protection. We've been lied to. I don't know what's going to happen to us. But if someone finds this, please tell our families that we love them and we never wanted to disappear. FBI behavioral analysts concluded that Sarah and Michael had realized the true nature of their situation just days before their trail went completely cold. On August 5th, Sarah's ATM card was used unsuccessfully at a bank in El Paso, Texas. The person attempting to use it entered the wrong PIN number, suggesting either someone else had stolen the card, or Sarah was under duress and deliberately entering incorrect information. Security footage showed a figure in a baseball cap and sunglasses, but the face wasn't clearly visible. After the declined transaction, the person quickly walked away and never attempted to use the card again. That same day, the 1995 Honda Accord that Michael had purchased with false identification was found abandoned near the Mexican border. Inside, investigators discovered a handwritten note tucked under the driver's seat. If something happens to us, look into Data Tech client files. The truth is there. M. This note provided the strongest evidence that Michael Henderson knew he was in danger and was trying to leave clues for investigators to follow. But by then, it was too late. The investigation into Datatech Solutions and Southwest Financial Services ultimately brought down the entire criminal conspiracy. Federal agents raided Southwest Financial on August 25, 1998, arresting 3 executives on charges related to money laundering and bank fraud. Under questioning, Executive Thomas Bradley admitted they had learned about Michael's discoveries and had hired Victor Reyes to handle the situation. When agents arrested Reyes at his Houston home on August 30th, they found damning evidence. Photographs of the Henderson couple, copies of their daily schedules, detailed information about their routines, and a burner cell phone containing text messages from the days surrounding their disappearance, including one that read, "Package collected and delivered as requested. Clean operation." Under pressure from federal prosecutors, Reyes eventually confessed to his role in the Henderson case. According to his testimony, he had approached the couple's home on the morning of July 15th, posed as a federal agent, and convinced them to leave with him for their own protection. "I transported them to various safe houses over several weeks," Reyes admitted. "They believed they were being processed through a legitimate witness protection program. I showed them fake FBI credentials and gave them detailed explanations about how witness protection works." But Reyes's story became vague and contradictory when prosecutors asked about the couple's ultimate fate. He claimed that he had released Sarah and Michael near the Mexican border and told them to flee across the border for their own safety. However, he could not provide specific details about when or where this had occurred. Despite extensive searching on both sides of the border, no trace of Sarah and Michael Henderson was ever found. In December 1998, Thomas Bradley and 2 other Southwest Financial executives were sentenced to federal prison. Victor Reyes received a 15-year sentence for kidnapping and racketeering, but was never charged with murder due to lack of evidence that the Hendersons were actually dead. The financial crime that Michael Henderson had discovered involved over $40 million in illegal transactions. His thorough documentation led to the conviction of 12 individuals and the closure of Southwest Financial Services. But the central question remained unanswered. What really happened to Sarah and Michael Henderson? Today, more than 25 years after Sarah and Michael Henderson vanished from their suburban Dallas home, their fate remains one of Texas's most enduring mysteries. The families never gave up hope. Patricia Martinez, Sarah's mother, organized search parties and distributed flyers throughout the Southwest. "I have to believe that Sarah and Michael are out there somewhere," she said during a 2018 interview marking the 20th anniversary of their disappearance. "Maybe they're together. Maybe they've started a new life. And maybe someday they'll find a way to let us know they're safe." Michael's parents took a different view, believing their son and daughter-in-law had been murdered. "We may never know exactly what happened," Robert Henderson stated, "but we know they didn't choose to abandon their families. They were victims of a crime that took them away from everyone who loved them." Over the years, there have been occasional reported sightings throughout the Americas. A tourist in Costa Rica claimed to have seen them at a beach resort in 2004. A businessman reported encountering a couple he believed to be the Hendersons at an airport in Argentina in 2007. Each report was investigated, but none resulted in confirmed contact with the missing couple. In 2019, the FBI announced it was reopening certain aspects of the Henderson investigation, using new technological capabilities. Ground-penetrating radar and advanced search techniques were used to examine potential burial sites, but no evidence related to the case was found. The reward for information leading to the Hendersons' safe return grew to $100,000 through contributions from family members, friends, and anonymous donors. It remains unclaimed. Detective Amanda Foster, now retired, still receives occasional calls from people claiming to have information about the case. "Even though I'm no longer with the department, I still feel a responsibility to Sarah and Michael," she explained in a 2021 interview. "They deserved better than what happened to them, and their families deserve answers." The case officially remains open, with the FBI maintaining a dedicated file and continuing to follow up on credible leads. The Henderson case had lasting impacts that extended far beyond the missing couple themselves. Datatech Solutions implemented new security protocols for employees working on sensitive projects, including mandatory reporting procedures for discoveries that might have legal implications. The cybersecurity industry began developing guidelines for protecting whistleblowers who discover evidence of criminal activity during routine work. Michael Henderson was a hero who died because he was trying to do the right thing, said Jennifer Park, president of the Texas Cybersecurity Association. His story reminds us that exposing criminal activity can be dangerous, but it also shows why it's so important that we continue to speak up when we discover wrongdoing. Sarah and Michael's families established a foundation in their memory that provides support for other families dealing with missing loved ones and advocates for improved protection of whistleblowers. The house on Maple Street where they lived was eventually sold to a new family. But those neighbors who remain still remember the young couple who seemed to have everything to live for before they vanished without a trace. Their story serves as a reminder that ordinary people can become caught up in extraordinary circumstances through no fault of their own, and that sometimes the pursuit of justice requires sacrifices that we can barely imagine. For Sarah Martinez Henderson and Michael Robert Henderson, two young people whose only crime was falling in love and building a life together, their story remains unfinished. Somewhere, somehow, the truth about their fate waits to be discovered. The truth has a way of surviving, even when those who try to bury it believe they've succeeded. Sometimes justice takes decades, but it never stops pursuing those who think they can escape it. Next time, we'll explore another case where ordinary people discovered extraordinary secrets and paid the ultimate price for their courage. In a world where powerful interests will do anything to protect their crimes, some truths refuse to stay buried. Some clues never truly fade. Here at Faded Clues, we believe every missing person deserves to be remembered. Every family deserves answers, and every truth deserves to see the light of day. Thank you for joining us in keeping these stories alive. If this case moved you, please subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss our weekly investigations. Your support helps us continue bringing attention to cases that might otherwise be forgotten. Share this video with others who care about justice, and leave your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, this has been Faded Clues.